The air burns your lungs. You take a breath, and it tastes wrong, thick, humid, charged with something ancient. The oxygen hits different here, richer, heavier. Your heart hammers against your ribs as you realize the truth. You are standing 160 million years in the past, and the world wants to kill you. Above, no blue sky exists. Instead, a canopy of green stretches endlessly. Fern fronds the size of airplane wings, cycad trunks thick as redwoods, conifers that pierce the clouds. The forest floor beneath your feet pulses with life. Beetles the size of your fist scuttle past. Something massive crashes through the undergrowth nearby, shaking the ground. This is the Jurassic. And humanity? Humanity is still 158 million years away from its first breath. Listen carefully. What you're about to hear isn't just another history lesson. This is a dark truth, a secret locked away in stones and bones that took us centuries to decode. This story was written in languages we forgot how to read, languages of volcanic glass and fossilized footprints, of continental drift and mass extinction. Subscribe now, because you're about to witness the most violent, beautiful, yet terrifying period in Earth's history. A time when giants walked, when the planet itself was young and savage, when death came on wings and claws. You cannot look away. The calendar reads 201 million years ago. The Triassic period has just ended in fire and poison gas. Volcanic eruptions have painted the sky black, and 76% of all species have vanished forever. The slate is wiped clean. Evolution starts again, gambling with new blueprints, rolling dice with DNA. But look closer at this strange new world. No ice caps crown the poles. The Arctic Ocean runs warm as bathwater. Palm trees grow in Alaska. Crocodiles bask in Norwegian fjords. The planet has become a greenhouse. CO2 levels hover at 1,800 parts per million, 6 times higher than today. The atmosphere itself is an alien thing. Sea levels? They've risen 200 feet above modern coastlines. Europe is an archipelago of tropical islands. Most of North America lies underwater. The Mediterranean doesn't exist. Instead, a vast warm sea called Tethys stretches from Spain to Indonesia, teeming with monsters we've only begun to understand. This is Eden with teeth. Ancient myths whisper of such places. The Sumerians spoke of Dilmun, a paradise where death held no dominion. Hindu texts describe Satya Yuga, the golden age when Earth overflowed with life. Norse legends tell of a primeval garden called Iðavolur, where gods walked among impossibly tall trees. They weren't imagining paradise, they were remembering the Jurassic. But memory plays tricks. What the myths forgot was the violence. In this greenhouse world, life explodes into forms that mock our understanding. Plants grow with the fury of wildfire. Horsetails stretch 40 feet high. Tree ferns create cathedral spaces in the forest, their fronds filtering sunlight into green-gold shafts. Ginkgo trees, which we know as living fossils, cover entire continents in their prime. The forests pulse with oxygen. 23% of the atmosphere, compared to today's 21%. Every breath supercharges the blood. Insects grow to nightmarish sizes. Dragonflies with 2-foot wingspans patrol the canopy. Beetles the size of house cats lumber through the underbrush. And in this oxygen-drunk world, something else is stirring. Footprints appear in the mud, round, deep, each one large enough for a grown man to lie down inside. They march in lines across dried lake beds, through fern meadows, beside riverbanks. The spacing between them suggests a stride of 12 feet. The depth suggests weight beyond imagination. Something is walking through this garden. Something colossal. The herbivores came first. In the warm, endless forests, plant eaters found paradise. With unlimited food and no seasonal die-offs, they could afford to grow. And grow they did. Natural selection had one message: bigger is better. Bigger means you can reach higher branches. Bigger means you can defend yourself. Bigger means you survive.
But bigger also means you need more food. Much more. A single adult sauropod requires 880 pounds of plant matter daily. That's like eating a small tree every few hours. The mathematics of gigantism demand perfection. Perfect climate, perfect vegetation, perfect timing. The Jurassic provided all three. Yet something darker lurks behind the numbers. For every gentle giant, predators evolved to match. The herbivore arms race triggered a carnivore revolution. If your prey weighs 40 tons, you need weapons that can bring down 40 tons. Nature responded with creatures that haunt our deepest nightmares. Allosaurus emerges from the forest shadows, 28 feet of muscle, bone, and hunger. Its skull alone measures 3 feet long, packed with teeth like railroad spikes. It moves with the patient grace of a shark, calculating distance, waiting for weakness. The giants know death stalks them. Even creatures weighing as much as 4 elephants travel in herds, watching the tree line, listening for the rustle that means a predator has found their scent. But the land predators are just the opening act. In the warm Jurassic seas, evolution crafts nightmares that make T-Rex look like a house cat. Lead sickness, a fish the size of a subway car, cruises the surface, filter feeding like a whale. But it's not the biggest thing in the water, not even close. Beneath the waves, true monsters wait. Pliosaurs patrol the deep, 60-foot marine reptiles with skulls longer than a great white shark's entire body. Their bite force exceeds that of any creature that ever lived. They are living submarines built for war, programmed for killing. And above the surface, the sky belongs to pterosaurs, flying reptiles with wingspans that block out the sun. They soar on thermals rising from the greenhouse world, their shadows falling across herds of giants like omens of death. This is the Jurassic food chain. Titanic herbivores, massive carnivores, oceanic leviathans, and aerial demons. Every niche filled with creatures that push the boundaries of what flesh and bone can accomplish. But here's the secret they don't teach in school. The Jurassic wasn't stable. Behind the greenhouse paradise, tectonic forces are tearing the world apart. Pangaea, the supercontinent that dominated Earth for 100 million years, is cracking along fault lines. Magma rises through the fractures. Continents begin their slow drift toward modern positions. The Earth is reshaping itself, and when the Earth moves, everything on it must adapt or die. Volcanic activity increases, climate fluctuates, sea levels rise and fall. New mountain ranges thrust skyward, new ocean basins open like wounds in the Earth's crust. The giants of the Jurassic don't know it yet, but they're living on borrowed time. Their greenhouse world is temporary. The continental breakup that feeds their paradise will eventually destroy it. But not yet. Not for another 55 million years. For now, the Titans rule. For now, the greenhouse world provides everything they need. For now, the Jurassic rolls on like a beautiful, violent dream. You can hear them in the distance, the low, rumbling calls of sauropods communicating across miles of forest. The sound travels through your bones, deeper than hearing, older than fear. It's the voice of deep time itself, calling from an age when Earth belonged to giants. The stage is set. The atmosphere burns with oxygen and possibility. The continents are moving. The seas are rising. Evolution has loaded the dice and thrown them across a greenhouse world. But who will stride across this stage? What manner of creatures can survive in a world where everything is supersized? where the sky rains volcanic ash, where the very ground shifts beneath your feet. The curtain is rising on the age of giants, and they're about to make their entrance. The ground splits beneath your feet. Not today, not in your time, but 200 million years ago, when the earth itself screamed in agony and continents cracked like broken glass. You're witnessing the most violent geological event in the planet's history, the death of Pangaea.
Imagine for 100 million years, all the land on Earth formed a single colossal mass. One supercontinent. One massive shore facing a world-spanning ocean called Panthalassa. Everything you know about geography, the Atlantic Ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, the gap between Africa and South America, none of it existed. Pangaea was a prison, and like all prisons, it was built to break. The forces that destroyed this supercontinent dwarf human comprehension. Deep beneath the surface, the Earth's mantle churns like boiling soup. Convection currents, hundreds of miles thick, carry heat from the planet's molten core. This heat seeks escape, and when it finds weakness in the continental crust, it erupts with the fury of a god. The Central Atlantic Magmatic Province begins forming. Imagine a volcanic event so massive it covers 4 million square miles, an area larger than Australia, in molten rock. Lava fountains a mile high paint the sky crimson. Poisonous gases choke the atmosphere. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction event begins, erasing 3/4 of all life on Earth. But from this apocalypse comes opportunity. The magma that kills also creates. As Pangaea bleeds lava, deep fractures spread like spiderwebs across the supercontinent. These aren't earthquake cracks. These are rift valleys hundreds of miles long, wounds that will become oceans. The first crack appears where the Atlantic Ocean will be born. Morocco separates from Nova Scotia at the speed your fingernails grow. 1 inch per year. It sounds slow until you multiply by 200 million years. That inch per year becomes thousands of miles of open ocean, new coastlines, new weather patterns, new worlds. But speed is deceptive. The separation starts with violence that reshapes continents. Picture North America and Africa locked together like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Now imagine invisible hands gripping each continent, pulling in opposite directions. The crust stretches. The stretching creates weakness. Magma exploits that weakness, rising through fractures, pooling in vast underground chambers. Then the chambers explode. Volcanic fissures, hundreds of miles long, split both continents. Lava flows bury forests, plains, and early dinosaur fossils under layers of basalt. The Newark supergroup in eastern North America preserves these apocalyptic deposits, volcanic rock laid down as Pangaea tore itself apart. In Morocco, similar formations tell the same story. The Argana Basin fills with lava and sediment as Africa spins away from North America. Dinosaur footprints, pressed into Triassic mud, are buried under Jurassic volcanic flows. Life interrupted by planetary surgery. The human mind struggles with such scales. We think of mountains as permanent, oceans as eternal, but the Earth thinks differently. To geological time, continents are temporary arrangements, shuffled and reshuffled like cards in an endless game. And the shuffle is accelerating. As the Central Atlantic widens, other fractures develop. South America begins separating from Africa. India, still attached to Antarctica, starts its long journey toward Asia. Australia drifts away from Antarctica. The supercontinent fragments like ice breaking up in spring. Each separation creates new coastlines, new shallow seas, new climate patterns. Where once there was continental interior, dry, harsh, subject to extreme seasons, now there are beaches, lagoons, coral reefs buzzing with fish, ammonites, and invertebrates we're still discovering. Coastal plains provide perfect habitat for dinosaur herds. The continental breakup doesn't just create new geography, it creates new evolutionary opportunities. But breakup comes with costs. As continents separate, they carry their passengers into isolation. Species that once could interbreed across connected landmasses now face thousands of miles of open ocean. Geographic isolation triggers evolutionary experiments. Similar creatures, separated by growing seas, evolve in different directions. This is how you get different dinosaur families on different continents. Stegosaurs dominate North America, while their relatives develop differently in Asia. South American sauropods grow larger than their African cousins. Geographic separation becomes evolutionary pressure. Ancient flood myths preserved memories of these cataclysmic changes. The biblical flood, Mesopotamian deluge stories, Hindu tales of Pralaya, Aboriginal Dreamtime floods, all echo this deep truth. The world was once different. Waters covered lands that are now dry. Seas existed where mountains now stand. They weren't entirely wrong. During the Jurassic, sea levels rose 200 feet above modern coastlines. Europe became an archipelago. The western interior seaway split North America in half. Australia was largely underwater. From space, the Jurassic Earth would look like a water world punctuated by large islands. The rise in sea level wasn't random. It was the inevitable result of continental breakup. When continents separate, the process creates new ocean floor. Newly formed oceanic crust is hot and buoyant. It sits higher than older, cooler ocean floor. This displaces water upward, raising global sea level. Additionally, the greenhouse climate melts any remaining ice caps. Without polar ice to lock up water, even more flows into the oceans. The combined effect creates a world where shallow seas cover vast areas of what we consider dry land. These inland seas become evolutionary laboratories. The western interior seaway, splitting North America from the Arctic to the Gulf of Mexico, hosts marine reptile communities unlike anything in modern oceans. Plesiosaurs, the size of school buses, cruise waters where Kansas and Nebraska now sit. Ammonites with shells 6 feet across drift through currents above what is now Colorado. Meanwhile, the separating continents experience their own transformations. As North America drifts away from Europe, it rotates slightly, bringing different latitudes into different climate zones. What was once cold tundra moves toward the equator and becomes tropical. What was once equatorial becomes temperate. This rotation and drift shuffle climate zones like a planetary card trick. Dinosaur species that evolved in cold climates suddenly find themselves in tropical heat. They must adapt, migrate, or die. Those that adapt become the ancestors of new species better suited to their new climate zones. The Tethys Sea, that vast, warm ocean stretching from Spain to Southeast Asia, becomes the planet's great mixing bowl. Currents carry marine life across thousands of miles. Ammonites from Morocco turn up in fossil beds in Turkey. Coral species from Italy appear in formations in Iran. The Tethys creates the first truly global marine ecosystem. But the Tethys also becomes a barrier. Africa, moving slowly northward, begins closing the gap between itself and Europe. This will eventually eliminate the Tethys entirely, pushing its waters into the young Atlantic and Pacific. But that's still 100 million years away. For now, the Tethys pulses with life, connecting far-flung ecosystems. On land, the breakup process creates unprecedented ecological diversity. Where Pangaea offered continental monotony, endless interior deserts, uniform climate zones, limited coastline, the fragmenting continents offer variety. Each new landmass develops its own climate, its own plant communities, its own animal species. North America's interior, no longer locked in continental drought, receives moisture from newly formed coastal seas. The climate becomes subtropical. Forests spread across regions that were previously desert. dinosaur diversity explodes as new habitats support new species. South America, drifting westward, encounters oceanic currents that bring different weather patterns. The Andes haven't formed yet. That collision with Pacific oceanic plates is still millions of years away, so moisture penetrates deep into the continent's interior. Vast river systems drain into the growing South Atlantic. Africa, the continental anchor around which other continents rotate, experiences its own changes. As the Atlantic widens and the Tethys spreads, new climate zones develop. The Sahara Desert doesn't exist yet. Instead, rivers and lakes cover North Africa. Dinosaur fossils from Morocco and Algeria show creatures that thrived in lush, well-watered environments. The breakup process itself creates temporary landscapes that exist nowhere today. Rift valleys stretch for thousands of miles, filled with lakes, rivers, and unique ecosystems. The East African Rift System, still active today, provides a modern glimpse of how continental breakup creates biodiversity hotspots. But Jurassic Rift systems dwarfed anything modern. The Newark supergroup preserves evidence of rift lakes hundreds of miles long, filled with early dinosaurs, crocodilians, fish, and plants found nowhere else. These rift ecosystems existed only during the breakup phase. Once the continents separated completely, the rifts either became ocean floor or dried up entirely. Volcanic activity accompanies every stage of the breakup. The same forces that separate continents also create massive volcanic provinces. The Karoo-Farar Large Igneous Province covers parts of southern Africa, Antarctica, Australia, and South America with lava flows up to 12,000 feet thick. These aren't gentle volcanic events, they're apocalyptic. Entire dinosaur ecosystems are buried under lava flows. Sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide from volcanic eruptions alter global climate. Some paleontologists argue that volcanism, not asteroid impact, drove multiple Jurassic extinction events. But life adapts to volcanic catastrophe with remarkable speed. Within thousands of years, a geological instant, new species colonize volcanic landscapes. Ferns sprout from cooling lava. Insects follow the plants. Small dinosaurs follow the insects. The food web rebuilds itself from the ground up. This pattern repeats across the fragmenting supercontinent. Destruction followed by explosive evolutionary innovation. Mass extinction followed by rapid speciation. The Earth's violence becomes evolution's opportunity. As the Jurassic progresses, the continental arrangement becomes recognizable. The Atlantic widens toward its modern configuration. South America and Africa separate enough to develop distinct ecosystems. India begins its northward journey toward collision with Asia. Australia drifts toward its isolated southern position. But the process is far from complete. The continents will continue moving for the rest of Earth's history. The Atlantic will keep widening. The Pacific will shrink. New mountain ranges will arise. New ocean basins will form. The Jurassic continental breakup isn't just geological history, it's ongoing geological present. The forces that tore Pangaea apart are still active. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge continues spreading. The East African Rift continues opening. In 50 million years, East Africa will be a separate continent, connected to the mainland only by narrow straits. But none of this future turmoil concerns the Jurassic world. The giants walking across the newly separated continents know nothing of plate tectonics or future geological catastrophe. They're focused on immediate concerns: food, territory, reproduction, survival. Yet their world is built on shifting foundations. The stable land they walk, the shallow seas they fish, the climate zones they inhabit, all exist because of ongoing continental drift. Remove the breakup forces, and the Jurassic greenhouse world collapses. The giants are riding the Earth's greatest transformation. The very forces that create their paradise will eventually destroy it. But for now, for this geological moment, the stage is perfectly set. New continents spread across the globe. New oceans connect distant shores. New climates create new opportunities. The planetary infrastructure is in place for the greatest biological experiment in Earth's history. The Earth has torn itself apart and rebuilt itself as something unprecedented, a greenhouse world of isolated continents, warm, shallow seas, and unlimited evolutionary possibilities. Now the question becomes, what will evolution build on this new foundation? The answer is walking through the forests, swimming in the seas, and flying through the oxygen-rich skies. The age of giants has begun, and they're just getting started. The tree reaches toward heaven like a living cathedral spire. You're standing beneath a Norfolk pine that towers 200 feet above you, its trunk thick enough to house a subway tunnel. But this giant is just one member of a forest that stretches to every horizon, an ocean of green that makes the Amazon look like a suburban garden. Welcome to the Jurassic forests, where plants don't just grow, they wage war for dominance of a planet drunk on carbon dioxide and sunshine. The air around you shimmers with 23% oxygen. Every breath supercharges your blood. Your heart pounds with the rhythm of a world running on evolutionary overdrive. The carbon dioxide levels, 6 times higher than your modern atmosphere, turn every plant into a photosynthetic machine operating at maximum efficiency. This is Eden with an engine, paradise with horsepower. But look closer at this green paradise, and you'll see the violence hidden beneath the beauty. The forest floor writhes with competition. Ferns the size of oak trees battle for patches of sunlight. Cycads with trunks like telephone poles guard their territory with toxic compounds that poison rival plants. Horsetails, ancient as dragons, stretch 40 feet into the canopy, their jointed stems marking time like geological metronomes. These aren't the gentle plants of your grandmother's garden. These are weapons of mass construction, building the infrastructure for the most successful biological experiment in Earth's history: gigantism. Every myth of the sacred forest echoes here. The Norse Yggdrasil, the world tree whose branches support the cosmos. The Mesopotamian tree of life, whose fruit grants immortality. The Mayan zebra, whose trunk connects the underworld to the heavens. These weren't fantasies, they were memories, genetic echoes of a time when trees really did seem to hold up the sky. But the Jurassic forests accomplished something more miraculous than mythology. They manufacture the atmosphere that feeds giants. Watch the leaves above you. Each one is a solar panel, converting carbon dioxide and sunlight into sugar and oxygen. But in the Jurassic greenhouse, this process operates at industrial scales. A single mature conifer pumps out more oxygen in a day than a modern redwood produces in a week. Multiply that by forests covering entire continents. Multiply by carbon dioxide levels that turn every plant into a photosynthetic furnace. The mathematics of oxygen production becomes staggering. The result? An atmosphere so rich in oxygen it changes the rules of life itself. Insects grow to monstrous proportions. Dragonflies with wingspans approaching 3 feet patrol the canopy like living fighter jets. Their compound eyes, each containing 30,000 lenses, track prey with predatory precision. Ground beetles the size of dinner plates lumber through the understory, their mandibles capable of crushing small vertebrates. But the insects are just the beginning. The real architects of this green world stand rooted in soil that hasn't felt winter cold in 10 million years. Conifers dominate the highlands. Araucarias, chirolepis, primitive pines whose resin still preserves insects in amber 150 million years later. These aren't the stunted mountain pines of modern alpine zones. These are giants, their trunks straight as cathedral columns, their crowns lost in permanent mist. In the lowlands, cycads rule with iron fronds. Williamsonia, Caicioidea, Nilsonia, names that sound like spells but represent some of the most successful plants in Earth's history. Their thick trunks store water and nutrients like botanical batteries, powering growth spurts that can add 20 feet of height in a single growing season.
But the true masters of the Jurassic forests are the ferns. Tree ferns create vast groves where sunlight filters through fronds the size of airplane wings. Osmunda, Coniophrachus, Metonia. They build living cathedrals whose vaulted spaces echo with the calls of early mammals and the rustle of small dinosaurs. These ferns reproduce through spores, not seeds. Trillions of microscopic capsules drift through the human air like biological snow, each one carrying the genetic blueprint for a new giant. The forest floor lies carpeted with germinating spores, creating a nursery that stretches from horizon to horizon. And in this nursery, something unprecedented is growing. The coal deposits of the future are forming beneath your feet. Layer upon layer of fallen fronds, decomposing trunks, accumulated plant matter compressed by geological time into the carbon reserves that will power human civilization. Every lump of coal, every drop of oil from Jurassic formations represents stored sunlight captured by these ancient forests. But the plants aren't just storing energy, they're creating it. The oxygen they produce becomes the fuel for gigantism. Herbivorous dinosaurs can grow to unprecedented sizes because the atmosphere provides more oxygen per breath. Their circulatory systems, operating in this supercharged environment, can efficiently distribute nutrients throughout massive bodies.
This is the secret of sauropod success. They didn't just evolve in the Jurassic forests, they co-evolved with them. Plant and animal locked in an escalating arms race of size and appetite. Consider the mathematics of this partnership. A mature Diplodocus consumes 880 pounds of plant matter daily. That's equivalent to stripping every leaf from a modern oak tree every 24 hours. But in the Jurassic forests, such consumption barely makes a dent in the available vegetation. The plants respond by growing faster, taller, more efficiently. The dinosaurs respond by growing larger, developing longer necks, more efficient digestive systems. Each escalation drives the other to new extremes. But this partnership has dark undertones. The same forests that feed the giants also hide their executioners. Predators lurk in the green shadows, using the dense vegetation as hunting grounds. Allosaurus moves through fern groves like a scaled phantom, its striped hide blending with light and shadow. The forest that feeds plant eaters also conceals meat eaters, creating a three-dimensional battlefield where death can strike from any direction. The trees themselves participate in this violence. Many species produce toxic compounds that make their leaves inedible to all but specialized herbivores. Others develop thorns, spines, and chemical defenses that can kill unwary browsers. The Jurassic forest is an armed camp, where every plant fights for survival. Ginkgo trees, which will survive virtually unchanged into your modern era, perfect their strategy of producing foul-smelling fruit that deters most seed predators while attracting specific dispersers. Their fan-shaped leaves, unchanged for 150 million years, represent evolutionary perfection achieved through chemical warfare. But the most sophisticated plants develop partnerships with specific dinosaur species. Certain cycads evolve fruit that only sauropods can digest, ensuring their seeds travel hundreds of miles in dinosaur digestive systems before being deposited in fertile dung piles. The dinosaurs get nutrition, the plants get continent-spanning dispersal. These plant-dinosaur partnerships create the first truly global ecosystems. Conifer species from North America appear in European fossil beds, their seeds carried by migrating dinosaur herds. Fern spores from Asia turn up in South American deposits, transported by pterosaurs that nest on different continents seasonally. The forests become living conveyor belts, moving genetic material across vast distances, creating plant communities of unprecedented diversity. A single Jurassic grove might contain species that originated on 3 different continents, brought together by the wandering appetites of herbivorous giants. This botanical mixing creates evolutionary pressure that drives rapid speciation.
Plants adapt to new climates, new soils, new herbivore communities. The number of plant species explodes, providing ever more specialized niches for dinosaur evolution. But the forests face challenges that will ultimately limit their dominance. The same continental breakup that creates new habitats also isolates plant populations. As Pangea fragments, forest communities that once shared genes across thousands of miles become separated by growing oceans. Geographic isolation triggers botanical evolution. Plants on different continents, no longer able to interbreed, develop in different directions. The global Jurassic flora begins fracturing into regional variations. North American forests develop different species compositions than European forests. Asian plant communities diverge from African ones. What began as a single planet-spanning forest gradually becomes multiple, isolated ecosystems. This fragmentation has consequences for the dinosaurs that depend on these forests. Herbivore species that once could migrate freely across Pangea find their food sources changing, their migration routes blocked by new seas. Some adapt by developing more flexible diets. Others specialize further, becoming dependent on specific plant species. The stage is set for evolutionary drama on an unprecedented scale. The forests have created the infrastructure for gigantism. The continental breakup has created isolated theaters where different evolutionary experiments can proceed simultaneously.
Some theaters will produce the largest land animals that ever lived. Others will generate the most efficient predators. Still others will craft flying reptiles that rule the skies. But all will depend on the green foundation built by the Jurassic forests. Without the oxygen pumped out by billions of photosynthetic plants, without the vast food webs rooted in fern groves and conifer stands, without the three-dimensional habitat created by tree crowns reaching toward the sky, none of the coming giants could exist. The forests whisper secrets in the wind that moves through their canopies. They speak of partnerships between species separated by millions of years of evolution. They tell stories of cooperation and competition played out on scales that dwarf human comprehension. And in their deepest shadows, something colossal is stirring. Something that has learned to use these green cathedrals as dining halls, these oxygen factories as life support systems, these botanical battlefields as hunting grounds. The forests have spoken. Now it's time for their children to answer. Civilizations collapsed because people stayed silent when they should have acted. Don't repeat their mistake here. If you're still watching, then you care about stories like this, so prove it. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications right now. Otherwise, this story gets buried, forgotten, just like the civilizations we speak of. Back to our story. The footprint could swallow a car. You're kneeling beside a depression in Jurassic mudstone, running your fingers along edges that dried 150 million years ago. The track measures 4 feet across, pressed deep into what once was the shore of an ancient lake. But this isn't just a footprint. It's a message from the age of giants. Something weighing 40 tons walked here. Something that shook the earth with every step, that bent trees with the sweep of its tail, that could look down on a 3-story building. Welcome to the reign of the Titans. The creature that made this track was Brontosaurus, thunder lizard, and the name fits perfectly. When a herd of these giants moves through the Jurassic landscape, the ground trembles for miles. Seismographs, had they existed, would register their passage as minor earthquakes. But Brontosaurus is just one member of a dynasty that redefined the possible. The sauropods, long-necked herbivorous dinosaurs, represent evolution's most audacious experiment in animal architecture. They are living skyscrapers, biological monuments to the power of unlimited growth. And they are everywhere. Across the fragmenting continents of the late Jurassic, sauropod species divide the landscape like feudal kingdoms. In North America, Diplodocus stretches 90 feet from nose to tail, its neck alone longer than a school bus. In East Africa, Brachiosaurus raises its head 50 feet into the air, browsing on treetops like a living crane. These aren't just big animals, they're impossibly big animals. Their size defies everything we think we know about the limits of flesh and bone. A Brachiosaurus heart weighs 880 pounds and pumps 20 gallons of blood with each beat. Its neck vertebrae, each one the size of a dining room table, support a skull that peers down from heights that make giraffes look like ponies. The mathematics of sauropod existence read like fantasy. An adult Diplodocus requires 880 pounds of vegetation daily. That's like eating a small forest every week. Its digestive system, a 100-foot conveyor belt of specialized chambers, processes plant matter with industrial efficiency. Gut stones, swallowed to aid digestion, grind tough plant fibers like biological millstones. But the most remarkable thing about sauropods isn't their size, it's their success. For over 100 million years, they dominated terrestrial ecosystems across every continent except Antarctica. No other group of large land animals has ever achieved such longevity, such diversity, such global reach. The secret to their success lies written in their bones. Sauropod skeletons represent masterpieces of biological engineering, solutions to structural problems that would challenge modern architects. Their vertebrae are hollowed out like airplane wings, providing maximum strength with minimum weight. Their leg bones, thick as concrete pillars, support loads that would crush conventional bone. But bones tell only part of the story. Recent discoveries reveal that sauropods were far more than walking appetites. They were social creatures with complex behaviors, sophisticated communication systems, and survival strategies that kept them dominant for geologic ages.
Trackway evidence shows sauropods traveled in herds of mixed ages, with juveniles protected in the center and adults forming defensive perimeters. When threatened, these herds could present a united front. Imagine facing 20 creatures, each weighing as much as 4 elephants, moving in coordinated formation. Their necks, once thought to be simple reaching tools, served multiple functions. They were semaphore systems for long-distance communication, weapons for intra-species combat, and thermal regulators that helped manage body temperature in the greenhouse climate. A sauropod could signal its intentions to herd members miles away simply by positioning its neck. But the Jurassic wasn't only about herbivorous giants. Evolution abhors a vacuum, especially one filled with 40-ton prey animals. Where massive herbivores thrived, massive carnivores evolved to hunt them. Allosaurus emerges from the Jurassic forests like a nightmare given flesh. 28 feet of predatory perfection built for one purpose: killing giants. Its skull, 3 feet of bone and teeth, houses a brain dedicated to calculating angles of attack on prey 10 times its size. This isn't the largest predator that ever lived. That distinction belongs to later tyrannosaurs and spinosaurs. But Allosaurus may be the most perfectly designed killer in the fossil record. Every bone, every muscle, every tooth optimized for bringing down sauropods. Its arms, dismissed by popular culture as vestigial, actually served as grappling hooks. When Allosaurus attacked, it used its powerful legs to leap onto a sauropod's back, its clawed hands to maintain grip, its massive jaws to deliver killing bites to the neck or spine. Fossilized Allosaurus teeth found embedded in sauropod vertebrae tell the story of these ancient battles. But Allosaurus faced the same mathematical challenges as its prey.
How do you design a predator capable of killing a creature weighing 40 tons? How do you build muscles strong enough to penetrate hide inches thick? How do you create weapons that can reach vital organs protected by walls of bone and flesh? The answer lies in precision engineering. Allosaurus didn't try to overpower sauropods, it tried to outmaneuver them. Its long, powerful legs provided bursts of speed that could close the distance to prey before they could react. Its tail, held rigid by interlocking vertebrae, served as a counterbalance that allowed quick direction changes during pursuit. Most importantly, Allosaurus hunted in packs. Fossil evidence from sites like Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry suggests these predators worked together to bring down large prey. A coordinated attack by multiple Allosaurus could overwhelm even the largest sauropod's defenses. The predator-prey dynamics of the Jurassic operated on scales unknown in the modern world. When a pack of Allosaurus attacked a Brontosaurus herd, the battle could be heard for miles. The ground shook with the impact of multi-ton bodies colliding. Trees were crushed, smaller animals fled in terror. These weren't simple predation events, they were ecosystem-shaping catastrophes. A single successful hunt could feed scavengers for months, fertilize acres of forest floor, and alter local vegetation patterns as trampled areas regrew with different plant communities. But the Titans faced threats beyond terrestrial predators. The Jurassic skies belonged to pterosaurs, flying reptiles whose largest species achieved wingspans that blocked out the sun. Quetzalcoatlus, with wings spanning 40 feet, could soar over sauropod herds like a winged death, waiting for the young, the old, or the injured to separate from protective adults. These aerial predators represented a different evolutionary solution to the problem of giantism. Instead of growing larger bodies, they grew larger wings. Instead of competing directly with terrestrial predators, they claimed the three-dimensional hunting ground of the sky. Pterosaurs developed hollow bones that made flight possible despite their enormous size. Their wing membranes, supported by a single elongated finger bone, could catch thermals rising from the sun-warmed Jurassic landscape and soar for hours without flapping. From their aerial vantage point, pterosaurs had godlike views of the terrestrial drama below. They could spot sauropod herds from dozens of miles away, track the movements of Allosaurus packs, identify wounded or dying animals that would soon become carrion. But the most revolutionary creature of the Jurassic wasn't a giant at all. Archaeopteryx, the feathered bridge between reptiles and birds, measured only 2 feet from beak to tail. Yet this small dinosaur represents one of evolution's most significant innovations: powered flight.
Archaeopteryx fossils, preserved in the limestone quarries of Bavaria, show a creature caught in the act of evolutionary transformation. Its skeleton is essentially that of a small theropod dinosaur, complete with teeth, clawed hands, and a long bony tail. But its feathers, asymmetrical flight feathers identical to those of modern birds, mark it as something entirely new. This wasn't just another dinosaur species. This was the birth of an entirely new way of life, a new relationship with three-dimensional space, a new chapter in the story of vertebrate evolution. The feathers that made flight possible originally evolved for different purposes. Early feathered dinosaurs used their plumage for insulation, display, and perhaps gliding between trees. But in the oxygen-rich atmosphere of the Jurassic, powered flight became possible for creatures that could never have gotten airborne in modern atmospheric conditions. Archaeopteryx represents the moment when dinosaurs conquered the sky. Its descendants would diversify into the 10,000 bird species alive today, making dinosaurs the most successful vertebrate group in Earth's history. But success in the Jurassic came with costs. The same atmospheric conditions that enabled gigantism also enabled catastrophic wildfires. With oxygen levels at 23%, forests ignited more easily and burned more intensely than modern vegetation. Entire ecosystems could be destroyed in single fire events. Fossil evidence suggests that Jurassic herbivores developed migration patterns timed to avoid fire seasons. Sauropod trackways show regular movements between highlands and lowlands, possibly following seasonal patterns of vegetation growth and fire risk. The giants also faced nutritional challenges unknown to modern herbivores. Plants growing in high CO2 environments often have lower protein content and higher fiber content than plants growing in modern atmospheric conditions. This meant sauropods had to process even more vegetation to meet their nutritional needs, creating an evolutionary pressure for ever more efficient digestive systems. Some species solved this problem through specialization. Diplodocus developed a unique tooth arrangement that allowed it to strip soft vegetation without consuming tough woody material. Camarasaurus evolved powerful jaws capable of processing tougher plant matter that other species couldn't digest. But specialization created vulnerability. As continental breakup altered plant communities, some specialized herbivores found their preferred food sources disappearing. The most successful sauropod species were those that maintained dietary flexibility. Predators faced similar challenges. As prey species evolved better defenses, predators had to evolve better weapons. This arms race drove increasingly sophisticated hunting strategies, more efficient weapons, and more complex social behaviors. Some Allosaurus species developed pack hunting techniques that allowed them to take down even the largest sauropods. Others specialized in hunting smaller, faster prey. A few species became primarily scavengers, using their powerful jaws to crack open bones that other predators couldn't access. But the diversity of Jurassic predators reflected the diversity of available prey. In addition to the famous Allosaurus, the period produced Ceratosaurus with its distinctive nasal horn, Torvosaurus with massive arms and claws, and dozens of smaller theropod species that hunted everything from insects to medium-sized herbivores. But perhaps the most impressive aspect of Jurassic ecosystems was their stability. Despite the constant evolutionary arms race between predators and prey, despite dramatic climate fluctuations, despite ongoing continental breakup, the basic structure of Jurassic ecosystems remained intact for over 50 million years. This stability emerged from complexity. With dozens of herbivore species, multiple predator guilds, diverse plant communities, and intricate food webs, Jurassic ecosystems had built-in redundancy. If one species went extinct, others could fill its ecological role. The giants weren't just random evolutionary accidents. They were integral components of finely balanced biological systems. Sauropods served as ecosystem engineers, creating clearings through their feeding, dispersing seeds across vast distances, and providing carrion that supported complex scavenger communities. Their size wasn't a burden, it was a feature. Large body size provided protection from predators, allowed access to food sources unavailable to smaller animals, and enabled long-distance migrations that connected isolated plant communities. But the age of giants was built on foundations that wouldn't last forever. The continental drift that created their greenhouse world would eventually destroy it. Climate change was inevitable. New predators were evolving. New diseases were spreading. The titans of the Jurassic ruled a world in constant flux. Their success depended on their ability to adapt to changing conditions, to evolve new survival strategies, to maintain the delicate balance between growth and sustainability.
As you stand beside that ancient footprint, pressed into stone that remembers when giants walked the earth, you can almost hear them. The low-frequency calls of sauropod herds communicating across miles of forest. The thunder of massive feet shaking the ground. The crack of breaking trees as 40-ton creatures moved through landscapes built to accommodate their presence. The titans ruled. But in the oceans, even greater predators waited. And in the skies above, death wore wings and rode the thermals rising from a greenhouse world. The stage was set for the greatest show in Earth's history. The players had taken their positions. The drama of deep time was about to begin. And somewhere in the shadows, already, the next act was stirring. The water turns black beneath you. You're floating in the warm Tethys Sea, 155 million years ago, when something the size of a subway train glides past in the depths below. Its silhouette blots out the filtered sunlight like a living eclipse. Rows of teeth, each one longer than your forearm, gleam white in jaws that could snap a great white shark in half. This is Leedsthichtes, the largest bony fish that ever lived, and it's not even the apex predator here. Welcome to the Jurassic oceans, where the land giants look like house cats compared to the monsters that rule the waves. The seas have risen 200 feet above modern levels, turning much of Europe into tropical archipelagos and splitting North America with an inland ocean that stretches from the Arctic to the Gulf of Mexico. These aren't the cold, sterile waters you know. These are greenhouse seas, warm as bathwater, rich in nutrients, pulsing with life forms that dwarf anything swimming in your modern oceans. And in these perfect conditions, evolution has gone completely insane. The Tethys Sea alone spans 6,000 miles from Spain to Indonesia, creating the largest marine habitat in Earth's history. Its warm currents carry nutrients across continents, supporting ecosystems so productive they make modern coral reefs look impoverished. But productivity breeds predators, and the Jurassic oceans have crafted predators that make the Allosaurus look like a harmless lizard. 60 feet beneath the surface, Liopleurodon patrols its territory with the confidence of an apex predator that has never met its match. This pliosaur, a short-necked marine reptile, measures 60 feet from nose to tail and weighs as much as 8 elephants. Its skull alone stretches 12 feet, housing a bite force that exceeds any creature that ever lived. When Liopleurodon attacks, the ocean erupts. Its paddle-shaped limbs, each one the size of a small boat, propels it through water with shocking speed. Prey animals, including other marine reptiles the size of modern whales, have seconds to react before those massive jaws snap shut with the force of a hydraulic press. But Liopleurodon isn't hunting alone. The Jurassic oceans support entire communities of marine reptiles, each species specialized for different prey, different depths, different hunting strategies. Cryptocleidos, a long-necked plesiosaur, sweeps its small head through schools of fish like a living net. Its flexible neck, longer than a school bus, allows it to strike at prey from impossible angles while keeping its massive body motionless in the water. Ophthalmosaurus, an ichthyosaur built like a living torpedo, pursues squid and fish with dolphin-like speed. Its eyes, each one the size of a dinner plate, gather light in the ocean depths where sunlight fails and bioluminescence becomes the only illumination. These aren't just big marine animals, they're perfectly engineered aquatic predators. Millions of years of evolution have refined their bodies into weapon systems optimized for underwater warfare. Consider the hydrodynamics of ichthyosaur design. Their shark-like bodies slice through water with minimal drag. Their crescent-shaped tail fins provide maximum thrust. Their dorsal fins, supported by hundreds of tiny bones, maintain stability during high-speed pursuits. But the most remarkable adaptation is convergent evolution. Ichthyosaurs, descended from land reptiles, independently evolved body plans nearly identical to modern dolphins and sharks. The ocean demands specific solutions to the problems of aquatic life, and evolution discovers those solutions repeatedly.
The same forces that shaped ichthyosaurs also crafted plesiosaurs, but with radically different results. Where ichthyosaurs became aquatic cheetahs, plesiosaurs became underwater giraffes, long-necked browsers that fed on fish, squid, and smaller marine reptiles. But some plesiosaurs abandoned the long-neck strategy entirely. Pliosaurs like Liopleurodon evolved massive heads and short necks, becoming the ocean's equivalent of tyrannosaurs. Their bite force, calculated from skull mechanics, exceeded 33,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush a small car.
The diversity of Jurassic marine reptiles reflects the diversity of available ecological niches. With sea levels at all-time highs, the oceans offered unprecedented habitat variety. Shallow epicontinental seas supported different communities than deep ocean basins. Coral reefs harbored different species than open water environments. The Western Interior Seaway, splitting North America from north to south, became a marine ecosystem unlike anything in the modern world. Ammonites with shells 6 feet across drifted through its currents. Marine crocodiles the size of city buses patrolled its shallows. Pterosaurs with 30-foot wingspans soared above its surface, diving for fish like titanic seabirds. But the true architects of Jurassic marine ecosystems weren't the giant predators, they were the reef builders. Coral reefs in the Jurassic operated on scales that dwarf modern barrier reefs. The Tethys Sea hosted reef systems thousands of miles long, built by hexacorals, scleractian corals, and rudist bivalves that created underwater cities buzzing with life. These reefs weren't just habitat, they were evolutionary laboratories. The complex three-dimensional structure provided countless niches for specialization. Fish species evolved to feed on specific coral types. Invertebrates developed symbiotic relationships with reef builders. Predators learned to use reef structures as ambush sites. Ammonites, those spiral-shelled cephalopods related to modern squid, reached their evolutionary peak in Jurassic seas. Some species developed shells as tightly coiled as watch springs. Others created loose, open spirals that defied conventional understanding of shell mechanics. The largest ammonites, like Parapuzosia, achieved shell diameters exceeding 6 feet. These weren't slow, passive drifters. They were active predators with tentacles, beaks, and sophisticated eyes. Fossil evidence suggests they hunted fish, crustaceans, and smaller cephalopods with the efficiency of underwater wolves. But ammonites faced constant pressure from shell-crushing predators. Marine reptiles evolved increasingly powerful jaws capable of cracking ammonite shells like nuts. This predation pressure drove ammonite evolution toward thicker shells, more complex suture patterns, and better swimming abilities. The evolutionary arms race between ammonites and their predators produced some of the most beautiful fossils in the geological record. Ammonite shells, with their intricate suture patterns and perfect spirals, represent mathematical precision achieved through biological processes. These spiral shells follow logarithmic equations that wouldn't be discovered by human mathematicians until the 17th century. The golden ratio, Fibonacci sequences, and complex geometric principles are encoded in calcium carbonate structures built by creatures with brains no larger than walnuts. The mathematics of shell construction reveal optimization principles that modern engineers still study. Ammonite shells achieved maximum strength with minimum material, maximum internal volume with minimum external surface area, maximum swimming efficiency with minimum energy expenditure. But mathematical perfection couldn't protect ammonites from the chaos of Jurassic marine ecosystems. Volcanic eruptions, climate fluctuations, and predation pressure drove constant evolutionary turnover. Ammonite species that dominated for millions of years could vanish in geological instants. The fossil record preserves these extinctions in limestone layers where abundant ammonite shells suddenly disappear, replaced by different species with different adaptations. Each layer tells the story of evolutionary experiments that succeeded or failed in the laboratory of deep time. But the most alien creatures in Jurassic seas weren't the giant predators or the mathematical mollusks. They were the belemnites. These cephalopods, related to modern cuttlefish, developed internal shells called guards that provided structural support for soft bodies. The guards, made of calcite, could reach lengths of 6 feet in the largest species. But unlike ammonite shells, belemnite guards were hidden inside the animal's body. Belemnites were living bullets, streamlined predators that could jet propel themselves through water at high speeds. Their fossilized ink sacs, preserved in fine-grained limestones, still contain melanin pigments identical to those used by modern squid.
Some belemnites developed hooks on their tentacles for grappling with prey. Others evolved cutting edges on their arms for slicing through flesh. The largest species, like Megateuthus, grew to lengths exceeding 30 feet and probably hunted fish, other cephalopods, and small marine reptiles. The diversity of belemnite feeding strategies reflects the complexity of Jurassic marine food webs, with dozens of predator species operating in different scales, from tiny fish to massive marine reptiles. Every ecological niche supported multiple specialists. But all these specialists depended on the foundation of the marine food web, microscopic plankton. Jurassic seas teemed with coccolithophores, single-celled algae that built intricate calcium carbonate plates. These microscopic organisms, invisible to the naked eye, produced the limestone formations that preserve Jurassic marine fossils. The White Cliffs of Dover, the lithographic limestones of Bavaria, the coral atolls of the Tethys, all built by creatures smaller than pinheads. The productivity of coccolithophore blooms supported vast populations of zooplankton, which in turn fed small fish, which fed larger fish, which fed marine reptiles. Every link in this chain depended on the photosynthetic output of microscopic plants floating in the sunlit surface waters. But the surface waters weren't always peaceful. Jurassic seas experienced massive storms that modern meteorologists can barely comprehend. With sea surface temperatures exceeding 85 degrees Fahrenheit and atmospheric moisture levels far above modern conditions, tropical cyclones achieved intensities unknown in recorded history. These hypercanes, with wind speeds potentially exceeding 500 miles per hour, could generate waves hundreds of feet high. Marine reptiles had to survive these oceanic apocalypses by diving deep, seeking shelter in underwater canyons, or riding out the storms in the relative safety of deep ocean basins. Storm deposits in Jurassic formations preserve evidence of these ancient hurricanes. Fossil-bearing rocks show sudden changes in grain size, chaotic mixing of shallow and deep-water sediments, and mass mortality layers where entire marine communities were destroyed by single storm events. But storms also brought opportunities. Nutrients stirred up from deep waters fertilized surface blooms. New habitats, created by storm-altered seafloors, provided niches for evolutionary innovation. Storm-driven currents transported species across ocean basins, enabling gene flow and preventing local populations from becoming too isolated. The global mythology of sea monsters and leviathans finds its roots in these Jurassic marine ecosystems. Every culture that developed near ancient seas preserved legends of dragons rising from the depths, serpents that could crush ships, monsters that ruled the waters before humans walked the land. The biblical Leviathan, the Mesopotamian Tiamat, the Norse Jormungandr, the Hindu Makara, all echo memories preserved in stone, fossils of marine reptiles discovered by ancient peoples who lacked the scientific framework to understand what they had found. Medieval dragons with their serpentine bodies and massive heads closely resemble plesiosaur reconstructions. Sea serpent sightings reported from every ocean match descriptions of long-necked marine reptiles surfacing to breathe. These aren't coincidences. They're cultural memories of encounters with fossils, genetic echoes of fears encoded in mammalian DNA, stories passed down through geologic ages about a time when the seas truly were ruled by monsters. But the Jurassic oceans were more than hunting grounds for giant predators. They were nurseries, highways, and libraries that preserve the history of life in layers of limestone and shale. Marine reptiles developed sophisticated migration patterns following seasonal blooms of prey species across ocean basins. Ichthyosaur fossils from the Arctic show species that fed in polar waters during summer months, then migrated to equatorial seas for breeding. These migrations connected geographically separated populations, maintained genetic diversity, and prevented the isolation that leads to local extinctions. The ocean currents that carried nutrients also carried genes, creating truly global marine ecosystems. But the oceans also served as evolutionary pressure cookers. The constant threat of predation drove rapid evolution of defensive strategies. Some fish developed armor plating, others evolved schooling behaviors. Many species became nocturnal, feeding under cover of darkness to avoid visual predators. The arms race between predators and prey produced increasingly sophisticated sensory systems. Marine reptiles evolved enhanced vision for hunting in deep water. Electroreception, the ability to detect electrical fields generated by muscle contractions, allowed some species to locate hidden prey. Echolocation, independently evolved by ichthyosaurs and modern dolphins, enabled hunting in murky water and at night. Fossil evidence suggests some Jurassic marine reptiles developed sound-producing organs for long-distance communication. The complexity of these adaptations rivals anything in modern marine ecosystems, but the Jurassic versions operated at scales unknown today. When the largest predators weigh as much as blue whales, and the most common herbivores are reptiles the size of school buses, every ecological interaction plays out at titanic scales. As the Jurassic progressed, the oceans faced increasing pressure from climate change. The greenhouse conditions that supported their productivity also drove sea level fluctuations, volcanic activity, and oceanic chemistry changes. Some marine reptile groups, like the short-necked pliosaurs, began declining as their preferred prey species evolved better defensive strategies. Others, like the long-necked plesiosaurs, diversified into new ecological niches. But the oceans continued to hold secrets, continued to evolve new monsters, continued to preserve the history of life in layers of sediment that would someday tell the story of the age when giants ruled both land and sea. The dark symphony of the Jurassic oceans played on, a composition of hunting calls, mating displays, territorial battles, and death songs that echoed across the world-spanning seas. Its movements were written in the spiral shells of ammonites, the streamlined bodies of ichthyosaurs, the massive skulls of marine crocodiles. And beneath it all, in the deepest waters where sunlight never penetrates, something even larger was stirring. Something that would make even Leopleurodon look like a minnow. The oceans kept their darkest secrets in the abyss, and some of those secrets are still down there, waiting. The bone turns to stone in your hands. You're holding the femur of a diplodocus, a piece of calcium phosphate that once supported 20 tons of living, breathing dinosaur. But now it's something else entirely. A message sent across 150 million years, encoded in mineral replacement and chemical substitution. This isn't just a fossil. It's a letter from deep time. The transformation began the moment this giant died. Perhaps it collapsed beside a river during a drought, its massive body too heavy for weakened legs to support. Perhaps it fell victim to a pack of Allosaurus, its blood seeping into Jurassic soil. The cause doesn't matter. What matters is what happened next. Scavengers came first. Smaller theropods stripped flesh from bones. Insects cleaned away soft tissues. Bacteria consumed what remained. Within months, only the skeleton remained, scattered across the floodplain like the ruins of a fallen cathedral. Then the river rose. Seasonal floods buried the bones in layers of fine sediment, silt and sand that settled into hollow eye sockets between vertebrae, inside the chambers of massive thigh bones. The burial had to be rapid, complete, perfect. Too slow, and the bones would decay. Too shallow, and they would weather away. Too deep, and crushing pressure would destroy them. But this burial was perfect, a geological accident that preserved not just bone, but behavior, diet, and the story of an entire ecosystem. As the centuries passed, groundwater seeping through the sediment began a chemical miracle. Mineral-rich water dissolved the calcium phosphate of bone, molecule by molecule, and replaced it with silica, iron oxide, calcium carbonate, whatever minerals the water carried. The process is called permineralization, but the term doesn't capture the magic. Every cell of the original bone, every growth ring, every microscopic structure was preserved in stone. Under a microscope, fossilized dinosaur bone is indistinguishable from living bone, except that it's made of rock instead of calcium.
This is how the Jurassic speaks to us. Through bones turned to stone, teeth transformed to jewels, footprints baked into ceramic hardness by geological time. But humans have been finding these messages for millennia, long before science provided a framework for understanding them. And the stories we told about these discoveries shaped civilizations. In ancient China, fossilized dinosaur bones were dragon bones, evidence that the mythical creatures of legend once walked the earth. Traditional Chinese medicine still prescribes ground fossil bone for various ailments, continuing a practice that began when Jurassic giants first emerged from eroding hillsides. Chinese scholars of the Han Dynasty cataloged fossil discoveries with the methodical precision that would later characterize paleontology. They noted the locations of finds, described the bones in detail, and developed theories about how such creatures could have existed. Some of their insights wouldn't be rediscovered by Western science until the 19th century. In ancient Greece, the discovery of massive fossilized skulls led to legends of Cyclops, one-eyed giants whose bones proved that the mythical age of heroes really happened. What the Greeks were actually finding were the skulls of dwarf elephants, whose nasal openings resembled single eye sockets to observers unfamiliar with elephant anatomy. But the Greeks made a crucial leap. They recognized that these bones belonged to creatures that no longer existed. This concept, extinction, wouldn't be formally accepted by European science until the 18th century. Medieval Europeans interpreted dinosaur fossils as evidence of biblical giants, dragons slain by saints, or the remains of creatures that failed to board Noah's Ark. The town of Klagenfurt, Austria, built its dragon fountain around a fossilized woolly rhinoceros skull, creating a monument to the power of paleontological misinterpretation. But these weren't just mistakes. They were attempts to integrate new information into existing worldviews. When faced with evidence that giants once walked the earth, human cultures created stories that made sense of that evidence within their understanding of history and mythology. The breakthrough came in the 19th century, when systematic excavation and comparative anatomy finally revealed the true nature of fossilized remains. But even then, the process of understanding required revolution after revolution in human thinking. Georges Cuvier, the father of paleontology, established extinction as a scientific fact by demonstrating that fossilized bones belonged to species that no longer existed. His work on mammoth remains proved that the biblical flood couldn't account for all fossil discoveries. The Earth must be much older than religious texts suggested. But Cuvier resisted the implications of his own discoveries. He couldn't accept that species changed over time, that the creatures preserved in stone were related to modern animals through evolutionary descent. That insight would require Charles Darwin and the theory of natural selection.
The first complete dinosaur skeleton, discovered in New Jersey in 1858, revolutionized understanding of prehistoric life. Hadrosaurus falci didn't just prove that giant reptiles once existed, it demonstrated that they were unlike any modern animals. These weren't just large lizards or crocodiles, they were something entirely new. Richard Owen, who coined the term dinosaur in 1842, recognized that these creatures represented a unique group of reptiles with characteristics unknown in the modern world. Their erect posture, their size, their diversity suggested evolutionary experimentation on scales never achieved by subsequent life forms. But the real revolution came with the discovery of complete dinosaur ecosystems. The Morrison Formation of the American West, deposited during the late Jurassic, preserved entire communities of dinosaurs, crocodiles, mammals, fish, and plants. For the first time, paleontologists could reconstruct not just individual species, but the environments they inhabited. The Morrison tells the story of a world where Diplodocus herds migrated across floodplains, where Allosaurus hunted in fern forests, where Stegosaurus wallowed in lakeside marshes. The formation preserves trackways showing dinosaur behavior, coprolites revealing dinosaur diet, and bone beds documenting mass mortality events. But reading this story required new techniques, new technologies, and new ways of thinking about the relationship between past and present. Taphonomy, the study of how organisms become fossils, revealed the biases inherent in the fossil record. Not all creatures fossilize equally. Bones preserve better than soft tissues. Marine environments preserve better than terrestrial ones. Large animals preserve better than small ones.
Understanding these biases allowed paleontologists to make inferences about aspects of Jurassic life that aren't directly preserved. If small theropod fossils are rare, it's probably because their bones were too fragile to fossilize regularly, not because small theropods were rare. If plant fossils dominate certain formations, it's because those environments favored plant preservation, not because animals were absent. Trace fossils, footprints, burrows, bite marks, coprolites provide insights into behavior that can't be gleaned from bones alone. A Jurassic trackway showing parallel sauropod paths suggests herding behavior. Bite marks on herbivore bones reveal predator-prey interactions. Coprolites containing plant fragments document dietary preferences. The famous Solnhofen limestone of Bavaria preserves not just bones, but feathers, soft tissues, and complete behavioral sequences. Archaeopteryx specimens from Solnhofen show not just what these early birds looked like, but how they lived, what they ate, and how they died. Modern paleontology has become a multidisciplinary science that combines geology, biology, chemistry, physics, and computer modeling to reconstruct ancient worlds. CT scanning reveals internal bone structure without destroying specimens. Geochemical analysis of tooth enamel reconstructs ancient diets. Computer modeling tests hypotheses about dinosaur locomotion and physiology. But perhaps the most revolutionary development has been the discovery that dinosaurs aren't extinct. Birds are dinosaurs, living, breathing, flying dinosaurs whose lineage stretches back to the Jurassic forests where Archaeopteryx first took wing. Every sparrow, every eagle, every chicken carries Jurassic DNA in its cells. The age of dinosaurs didn't end 66 million years ago. It continues today in every backyard, every forest, every sky. This realization has transformed our understanding of the Jurassic world. Instead of seeing dinosaurs as cold-blooded reptilian failures, we now recognize them as warm-blooded, behaviorally complex, evolutionarily successful animals whose descendants conquered the planet.
Modern birds retain Jurassic characteristics that have vanished from other vertebrate groups. Their hollow bones, their efficient respiratory systems, their complex social behaviors, all inherited from dinosaur ancestors that lived when the continents were still breaking apart. The molecular clock, which uses genetic differences between species to estimate divergence times, suggests that many modern bird lineages trace their roots to the Jurassic period. The basic body plan that allows a hummingbird to hover was perfected in Jurassic forests. The flight mechanics that carry albatrosses across oceans were refined in Jurassic skies. But birds aren't the only Jurassic survivors. Ginkgo trees, growing in city parks around the world, are virtually identical to specimens fossilized in Jurassic rocks. Their fan-shaped leaves, their reproductive strategies, their cellular structure have remained unchanged for 150 million years. Crocodiles retain the basic body plan of their Jurassic ancestors. Sharks swimming in modern oceans are built on designs perfected in Jurassic seas. Coelacanths, fish thought extinct until their rediscovery in 1938, preserve anatomical features that haven't changed since the Jurassic period. The Jurassic isn't dead, it's alive in the modern world, visible to those who know how to look. Every time a bird builds a nest, it's using behaviors inherited from dinosaur ancestors. Every time a ginkgo tree drops its leaves, it's following seasonal rhythms established in Jurassic forests. But the deepest connection between the Jurassic and the present lies in the rocks themselves. The limestone quarries of Bavaria, the sandstone formations of Colorado, the shale deposits of Yorkshire, all preserve Jurassic environments in extraordinary detail. These formations are libraries containing the accumulated knowledge of 54 million years of evolution. Every layer tells part of the story. Every fossil adds a sentence to the narrative. Every geochemical signature provides context for understanding ancient climates, ancient ecosystems, ancient catastrophes. The technology for reading these stone libraries continues advancing. Mass spectrometry can identify organic compounds preserved in fossils hundreds of millions of years old. Synchrotron radiation reveals cellular details invisible to conventional microscopy. Computer modeling tests hypotheses about dinosaur locomotion and physiology. But perhaps the most revolutionary development in paleontology aren't technological, they're conceptual.
The recognition that the past isn't a foreign country, but a continuation of processes still active today. The understanding that evolution isn't progress towards some predetermined goal, but adaptation to changing circumstances. The realization that extinction isn't failure, but part of the creative process that generates biodiversity. These insights transform our relationship with deep time. Instead of seeing the Jurassic as ancient history, we recognize it as recent developments in an ongoing experiment. Instead of viewing fossils as curiosities from a vanished world, we see them as evidence of the creative power that continues shaping life today. The Jurassic giants weren't evolutionary dead ends. They were innovators, whose experiments in giantism, flight, and ecological complexity established patterns that persist in modern ecosystems. Their bones, turned to stone by geological time, provide blueprints for understanding how life responds to environmental change. And environmental change is accelerating. The same forces that shaped Jurassic climate, atmospheric chemistry, continental configuration, volcanic activity are active today. The same evolutionary pressures that drove Jurassic giantism, predation, competition, resource availability, continue driving modern speciation. The Jurassic offers a preview of Earth's future as much as a window into its past. As human activities alter global climate, as sea levels rise, as ecosystems reorganize, the patterns established 150 million years ago provide guidance for predicting what comes next. Will new giants evolve to fill ecological niches created by environmental change? Will marine ecosystems reorganize around different energy sources? Will flying reptiles return to reclaim the skies?
The fossil record suggests that life's creativity has no limits except those imposed by physics and chemistry. The Jurassic giants push those limits to their extreme, creating biological architectures that have never been equaled. But life continues evolving, continues experimenting, continues pushing boundaries. The creatures walking, swimming, and flying on today's Earth are just the latest chapter in a story that began billions of years ago and will continue for billions more. The Jurassic is not ancient history, it's current events in geological time. Its lessons aren't museum curiosities, they're survival guides for navigating an uncertain future. Every fossil is a message. Every rock formation is a prediction. Every extinct species is a hypothesis about what's possible. The bone in your hands has traveled 150 million years to deliver its message. It speaks of worlds where giants walked, where forests reached toward the sky, where seas teemed with monsters. But more importantly, it speaks of continuity, the unbroken chain connecting the Jurassic to the present, the past to the future, the possible to the actual. Time is not linear, it's circular. The same forces that shaped the Jurassic are shaping today. The same evolutionary pressures are driving the same creative responses. The same planet that hosted the Age of Giants is hosting the Age of Humans. The Earth always remembers. In layers of sedimentary rock, in the DNA of living creatures, in the patterns of continental drift, in the cycles of climate change, memory persists across geological ages. The Jurassic lives on, in every bird that takes wing, in every tree that reaches for sunlight, in every wave that crashes against the shore. The Age of Giants is not over. It has simply taken new forms.
And somewhere in the fossil record of the future, paleontologists of a distant age will discover the bones of our civilization, turned to stone by time, carrying messages we cannot imagine across the vast distances of deep time. Every viewer leaves a trace, just like every civilization leaves a mark. If you don't leave yours, this story risks being buried by time. So make your mark now. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications, because history only remembers those who act. Stay tuned for daily hidden history the world has been hiding from you.